All right, hello, and welcome to the conference championship version of the Pick'em podcast. I'm back with Mr. Read Option, the man who was really good with his prediction, minus the St. Louis and Orlando. I'll take that L as well. And we both flubbed on the Columbus and Austin, but outside of that, I think you're pretty spot on, but you didn't get that. You didn't get that $1 for $5,000 return. So
no, yeah, I'm gonna be missing that this week when I'm trying to buy coffee. I have to not get it one day for that dollar that I bet on Austin, and yeah, that Orlando St. Louis game just I think blew everyone collectively away that watches the NAGA. Nobody was expecting it to be that gruesome. Is the word I'll use.
Yeah, I think everyone involved watching that game was not expecting that St. Louis offense to just pulverize that defense. But I do want to ask, I mean, maybe you'll tell me later after the episode, but I want to know where you're getting $1 coffee, because that's a steal. And I think we need to buy that coffee and we need to resell it on the market for $3.
Now, if I told you, then everyone would know about it, and I'd have to stand in line instead of just walking right in. Little hole in the wall.
Oh man, you're right. So yeah, you know what? We'll keep it private, and that way they won't know, but we'll know. And then when we come out with a coffee brand, they'll know that we know. You know what I'm saying?
Facts. Yeah.
So, all right. So we've got our couple of game previews before we start our Pick'em podcast. Obviously, though, before we begin this, we've got to state the two teams that are going forward that everyone knows since you've watched the game. So this point is useless, but still got to do it. St. Louis will be hosting, or no, sorry, apologies. I read that backwards. Virginia Beach will be hosting St. Louis. And Columbus, of course, will be hosting the San Antonio Fighters. Now, to note before we begin these reviews of the games, San Antonio is the only team to not have a bye week that is now in the conference championship. So Columbus, St. Louis, and Virginia Beach have all only played one game. San Antonio has now played 2 games. So they'll be going into their third stretch, while these other 2 teams will have had time to heal their players, no risk of injury for the first week, and now they come in a lot more fresher. So that's going to be a bit of I would say, effect for the SA Columbus game, but I think, as we all know, St. Louis and Virginia Beach, they're both healthy. They're both top dogs, so we'll see how that goes. So we'll head on into the Virginia Beach and St. Louis game. Obviously, as we all know, Virginia Beach bested the Wichita Wranglers. Just to start off, Wichita, they had 1 turnover, but relatively, other than that, it was a slaughter fest on the rush yards end. They only had 19 yards. The Virginia Beach defense is pretty stout stopping the run. They had 217 yards passing, though, but, once you go down in a game like that, you kind of got to start passing. Virginia Beach, obviously, the powerhouse of their conference, 245 rushing yards and 151 passing yards. And obviously, to note, Virginia Beach, their quarterback had the most interesting stat line. Corey Marshall, 9 of 15, 60%, but 151 yards and a touchdown, which, by the way, that did give him a easy breezy, wonderful 116 rating. So he's second in the playoffs now for that. So right off the bat, Virginia Beach showing that they can get it done with the run and throw a couple passes and still destroy you. So yeah, that matchup was something to behold. I think we were kind of anticipating in the back of our minds a possible upset, but Virginia Beach shut that down immediately. So that was the Virginia Beach and Wichita game. And then, of course, the opponent, the St. Louis Sharks, who, mauled, destroyed, sent Orlando packing way too early, in my opinion, to Cancun, the Orlando Flames. It was a slaughter fest. Orlando took 6 sacks. They committed 3 turnovers to St. Louis's 2. Rushing yards, again, shut down by St. Louis, less than 100, 1 shy, 99. pass yards under 150 for only 136 yards, and St. Louis just firing all cylinders. 227 pass yards. We got 256 rushing yards, which insane. And it led to a blowout win for St. Louis. And obviously that now has left Orlando and Cancun with Wichita, probably boarding the exact same flight. And yeah, I mean, we saw from those two teams a powerful, powerful force. St. Louis, I mean, this stat line alone is possibly the scariest for anyone who is not a St. Louis fan. You've got, I believe it was Josiah Bell. He went 32 for 179 yards and 2 touchdowns with a 5.6 average. And then their quarterback, Cody Tobin, who, by the way, every single one of us didn't think he was going to do well. We all kind of thought since the beginning of the playoffs he was going to, kind of throw himself out of the playoffs. He went 14 of 23 for 61%, 256 yards, as I said before, a touchdown and an interception, but he averaged 18.3 yards per play, or per pass completion. So kind of hard to stop a quarterback when every time they complete it, they average almost 2 first downs per, it's insane. So obviously, now stating that these two teams now will face off. Virginia Beach facing St. Louis. There are no odds because everything's been thrown out the window now. We don't know who's going to win on anything. So we're going to go ahead and make some odds right now as the media team. So don't don't trust us on this. But after watching those two games, I think it's going to be, I'm going to say a -3 for Virginia Beach, obviously coming in as the favorites. I think, honestly, between these two teams, it might just come down to, a field goal, obviously. So we'll go ahead and move into the predictions then. But I'll go ahead and cut this short because obviously I did the preview. I'm going to pick a shootout of sorts. I'm going to say that Virginia Beach wins 31-27. I think C4 has a good day. I think he completes over 60% again. I think he probably completes under, I'm going to say he throws less than 14 passes. I'm going to say they rush for, I'm going to say over at least 270 yards. And I think St. Louis is going to try their best. I think Cody Tobin's new invigoration of getting through that hump of the season, of the regular season, I think he's going to throw for probably 320 plus yards, and he's probably going to throw a couple touchdowns. But I mean, in the end, with both these teams with a great rush defense, I think VB is going to take it because I just trust C4 more. So obviously, that's my rambling. And I will leave Mr. Reed Option for his side of the pick now.
Yeah, I mean, you said it best. Cody Tobin, he really surprised everyone. He balled out. I expect him to continue to pass against Virginia Beach. I believe, and I'm going to preface this before I make either of my two picks. The 4 remaining teams all are, insanely good. They all deserve a championship. They've shown how much they deserve it by beating the 4 teams that were sent packing to Cancun this week. Something that they all have in common are like really good defenses with really great pass rushes and really good rushing offenses. The rushing threats are real with these teams. The difference between them will lie in their superstar power and how resilient they can be, especially to injuries. I mean, we saw Ryan Davis go down in the San Antonio game, and no doubt injuries have played a toll on many teams this season, some of which are still carrying into these games. However, fortunately for Virginia Beach, they just got all of their injuries off this week. Everybody that was injured last week is ready to go this week. I predict Virginia Beach being on top, but not by much. 27-21 is my take. I think that we're going to see a lot of Eric Walker and Kamani Moore. We're going to see a lot of Josiah Bell and Jaquan Winters. And at the end of the day, it's going to be, who makes the mistakes, who fumbles it. We might even see some third string running back action from Anthony Jackson and James Wheeler. But overall, it's 2 powerhouses, and no quarterback drop back will go unpunished. So I expect to see a lot of defensive line play from Virginia Beach with Desmond Cooper and Ryan Tanner, as well as Matt Grimes and Joseph Toussaint. I mean, the St. Louis side of things, you have their stud defensive backs. I mean, you'll see them get sacks as well if they are to get any. But getting sacked, 6 times, you gotta start worrying about your offensive line. Matt Schaefer's out for the St. Louis Sharks, the left guard, so they're going to be left a little wounded coming into this game. And I have a feeling that Tobin, despite undoubtedly getting bombs to James Murray and LaShawn Randolph, that he will be sore following the loss to Virginia Beach. Still a close game, 27-21.
As I accidentally muted myself because I'm intelligent, I was saying that was a very nice pick. I do kind of agree with you. I think your insight of it is probably more accurate than mine, but I will say that I do agree on one end. But I will say I think St. Louis. I think eventually their run game is going to get stuffed too much because the Virginia Beach defense. I don't know if anyone knows this, but I'm 99% sure they are the number one rush defense in the league. So after you running 1, 2, -3 yard rushes over and over and over, you're going to look and go, why don't we try the pass? I think that might work a little bit better. So I will agree in that it'll be a very close game. But I will say I think what's probably going to lead to it is that St. Louis is going to have to start passing more. And obviously it'll leave them one-dimensional, but it'll also have to make them a little bit more schematical on the offensive side. Now, before we move off of both of these picks, a quick note. I know obviously someone's probably already gone to the chapters and skipped over, but that's okay. Both these quarterbacks, Virginia Beach and St. Louis, I mean, they're basically tied right with each other in terms of attempts, percentage, completion percentage, 100 more yards for Tobin than Marshall. But you look at the running backs and it's like, man, like Virginia Beach is solid, St. Louis is solid, and it's like two identical teams stat-wise for the playoffs meeting each other. And so we're going to see, is the number one defense better? Or can St. Louis just continue this miracle run that they've had of turning it over as soon as they got that bye week and just kicking it off strong with Orlando? So that means now that we'll go ahead and move on to our Columbus hosting the San Antonio Fighters. These two games that these two teams played could not have been any different. As E had stated before, we'll go and get the big elephant out of the room. Ryan Davis broke his back in that game. He was crunched during the pass attempt. McDonough sealed that entire playoff in its entire fatality with an interception, completely killing a lot of momentum. And from there, San Antonio just took off. However, to note, their backup, Ragusa, for the Portland Grizzlies, played a phenomenal game. In every way, he outperformed Ryan Davis, shockingly. But it was just not enough. San Antonio had already put up a 3-touchdown lead, and you can't really come back from that. Outside of that, though, there was a lot of positives. Obviously, McDonough leading the team in tackles. He had the sack. He had the lone interception. You're watching Alonzo Douglas pop off. You're watching Barrett and McKinley. They're starting to pop off as defensive backs for San Antonio. Boykin had a 100-plus yard game. Cedric Vaughn was getting there. Lamar Hamilton, who's not been talked about mostly all season, he was in there. And then obviously Bronson and Gooden combining for 309 yards was the most insane thing. As, again, San Antonio toppled Portland on a asterisk with Ryan Davis being injured. You head on over to the Austin-Columbus game, and I mean, this in my opinion, and I know this is not a popular opinion, but in my opinion, I think the wrong team won, but that doesn't mean to discredit Columbus. This means that Austin snatched defeat from the jaws of victory, and they should be in the championship right now, which is something their new owner, who has been taking a step back and observing the team as a whole to know where he needs to move on from this retirement home of a team, will obviously address in the offseason. But Columbus, of course, you're looking at their defense. Whitley leading with 8 tackles, 3 interceptions from Whitley, Shattuck, Jordan. You've got over, 9 deflected passes coming across the board. Orsini coming in with his lone TFL and 7 tackles. And then, of course, on the receiving side, Michaels with 87 yards, Ellis 38, Thompson 26. And it was a grind fest. I mean, it was really just a game of field goals. The defenses were holding each other. But in the end, if we don't look at the final drive and we just look at Columbus and Austin before that final drive where they sealed the game, Columbus was shutting down Austin. They were doing everything they needed to do. They allowed a few big plays, but they kept it under wraps and limited Austin to nothing but field goals. And they held the run game very well, though, to be understandable, it was also their backup running back. So positives, negatives a little bit from both games. Obviously, San Antonio with the big asterisks, can they really face good teams and beat them? Losing to Portland in the regular season, and then Davis gets injured and they win. You're looking at Columbus and Austin, and outside of that interception in the end zone, at the final 50 seconds with 3 timeouts, Austin should have gone in to score overtime or score and won. So, a little bit of question marks with this game. Not as cut and dry as the Virginia Beach and St. Louis game. But we'll go ahead and move on to stats, obviously. And this is now where I move into my pick portion to kind of help separate those lines there. We're going to go ahead and say this Columbus and San Antonio game, it's probably going to be a field goal. The way these two teams play, the way they don't let up a lot of big plays, the way that San Antonio likes to take short plays, the way that Columbus likes to just hammer you constantly over and over with the run game. But to go ahead and look at these stats, Columbus, 17 of 39, 44%, not exactly great, but 225 yards. He did have an interception, though. Chambers with 28 attempts, 160 plus yards, averaging 5.8. On the San Antonio side, you've got Chris Stallings, who's just continuing this miracle run of 34, 51, 67%, 500 plus yards, 5 touchdowns, 14.8 yards per completion. Then obviously Gooden, 27 attempts last game for 229 yards, 3 touchdowns, 8.5 yards per carry. I mean, it's going to be one or the other. It's either going to be a massive shootout or it's going to be a situation where it's long drives, stalled out, kicking field goals. Obviously, you look at a couple of the players. San Antonio does get Willie Malone Jr. That is an important key piece for them. They did switch them over to free safety, move Jaden Hollins to third string cornerback. So that is a bit of the defensive side. So there could be a little bit better play in the secondary, though they're kind of the exact same. And outside of that, I do believe Columbus is entering with relatively light injuries, if any at all, as we go ahead and check out the injury report. And they're still working without left guard Joey. I'm not even going to try to pronounce him. I'm going to call him Maz and Deshaun Trimble. So both those players are out, so they're unfortunately not available. But yeah, that's about it. I think we'll go ahead and move to my pick now, which is Columbus taking the win, 19-17. This is not any different than when San Antonio first faced Columbus and lost by 2. In fact, I think this might be the exact same score, if not 21-19, I believe. So very close game in my opinion. I think it's going to be a lot of stalled run drives that are stalled out with field goals, and I do think eventually Columbus will overcome the powerful run from San Antonio. So now I will hand it on over to Mr. Read Option.
I'm glad that you brought up the last time they faced each other this season. I'm also going to be referring to that. It was in week 2 of this season, which is far sooner and a lot more referenceable than when the last time Virginia Beach and St. Louis faced each other in the middle of season 2, going a doubleheader. That doesn't really happen often in the NAGA, and trading wins. But those teams look very different. These teams are effectively, I mean, with the exception of Weber being subbed out for Stallings, the same team. However, I think that on the defensive side of things, San Antonio pretty much replicates the stats. I mean, they had 5 sacks against Columbus in week 2. And with the injuries that are plaguing the Columbus offensive line, I mean, you have left guard Tom Reagan and another guard, Joe Mazurkovich. They're both out. So you got less protection. You even have right tackle Deshaun Trimble out. So you have 3 of your starting offensive linemen out for Columbus. You have Jalen Washington, who, I mean, don't get me wrong, he is the Michael Vick of our league. He can run, he can throw, he can break tackles, but the San Antonio defense will be ruthless. I mean, I don't doubt either of these two defenses won't be ruthless. I think that the running game will be once again relied on Ramon Gooden, Davon Bronson, Michel Gramillion. Those three really getting the ball a bunch. Columbus will rely a little bit less on the run. You'll see Chambers and Gaddis, but they love to drop back with Washington, even if it costs them 7 sacks. I think that might be their downfall. Spoiler for the end of my little segment here. I'm going to predict San Antonio on top. I do think field goals will be prominent. I think it'll be a lot of clock eaten up. So I think that the odd spread is probably close to the Virginia Beach St. Louis spread, probably in a -3, a 3-point spread. And I think it'll be a lower scoring game. I think we might see more field goals from Fanasteel than we will from Montgomery. Fanasteel simply has a stronger leg. He's going to attempt them from further out, and he's going to make them from further out. I think that if it wasn't for the missed 2-point conversion, which, I mean, that's how the last game between these two teams ended. It was a missed 2-point conversion that would have sent it into overtime. And honestly, with the way that the momentum was going, San Antonio would have had it. They had more total yards, more total plays, more sacks, more turnovers for themselves. I think that if San Antonio is able to get up at any point in this game, then, or at least stay confident in their ability to just put points on the board, then they'll come out on top. I have it as 16-14 San Antonio, which, yes, that does bring us to, I mean, the league's first, I mean, out of 3 seasons, not a lot of seasons, but it's odd to happen in a league that you have not only a Super Bowl team going to the championship twice, like the Kansas City Chiefs, but you have a rematch 2 times in a row, the same 2 teams, the owner of Virginia Beach at risk being a Marv Levy or a Kyle Shanahan, if they don't come back and win this. But if these 2 teams win like I predict they will, we're going to have a great game, and it's going to pretty much be the same dynamics as the 2 championship games that we're looking at this week. It's going to be a lot of runs, a lot of pounding on the defense. The defense it's going to be a war of attrition, and it's going to be whose ACL gets tenderized first. Out of all of the run plays and all of the abuse that these players are going to be experiencing, especially San Antonio, as Cole mentioned. They this is their 3rd game in the playoffs. This isn't their 2nd game. It's going to be some tiresome play. And these teams got to mix it up or start looking at their 3rd and 4th string running backs to take the spots of their studs, and hope that more injuries don't plague them. I do see San Antonio, despite the tenderized joints and ligaments, I do see them going to the championship and potentially running this thing back twice. First 2-time NAGA champions. I think that the league isn't ready for the dynasty that we're about to experience, but I am welcoming all owners that will come and apply to, give them a run for their money. See what you can do.
Yeah, we definitely need more owners. More people gotta help stop the availability of dynasties and run back championships. The more parity in the league, the better. Obviously, every owner would love to win the championship every single year, but the more enjoyment, the more entertainment that comes from a league is centered around, and I believe both of our opinions, having parity at the championship level. So definitely would get a little bit boring if we had repeat champions or a team wins it every 2 years. And so, yes, please, more owners, more, I would say, underdog mentality styled owners to come in and upset the way things are going as of now, which would be very interesting to have a rematch of that caliber. But obviously for me, I have Virginia Beach returning back to the championship a Bills style return. Hopefully not the defeat. I don't know if I could stomach watching a 4-time loss like have those poor Bills fan had to. But obviously they'd face Columbus. And then, of course, in my opinion, I think that'd be an extremely close game. I think Virginia Beach would obviously go on to win it. That is my opinion. And I think they'd be able to redeem themselves from the championship potential hangover that everyone claims that exists, which Virginia Beach is shaking off at the moment. But yes, I think these two predictions are great. I think obviously you can't go wrong with predicting Virginia Beach and San Antonio, but as well as you can't go wrong with predicting St. Louis and Columbus. I think that would also be the ultimate parity. It would take, in my opinion, a massive Herculean effort to upset the Virginia Beach Mariners. But hey, you never know. I mean, Wichita did beat Memphis, and Memphis was heavily favored, so it could happen.
And Cody Tobin sure did shock us all last week. So, I mean, if he's bound to do it twice, lightning never strikes twice, but it can potentially for Cody Tobin.
It definitely could, and he could wind up turning his career around. He could be the Joe Flacco,
Yeah.
Doesn't do much and then shows up and just goes on a tear. So before we head out, obviously we got to look at these stats for the quarterbacks in comparison, ranking-wise. Chris Stallings having 2 games under his belt, but still no difference. Stallings number 1 in quarterback rating, Jalen Washington number 4. Completion, and this is actually kind of shocking. Jalen Washington, despite only having 1 game, is not that far away from having as many pass attempts as Stallings. Stallings has 51. Washington has 39, which is kind of insane when you think about it because the run game did so well against Austin, but yet they passed it almost 40 times, which is kind of insane. He also ranks number 2 in both completion and attempts, while Stallings is still number 1. Completion percent, number 1 for Stallings, number 4 for Washington, as we mentioned, with the 44%. The yards, 502 for Stallings, number 1. Ranked 3 for Washington, 225. TDs, tied last with 0 for Washington, and tied second for interceptions with 1. And obviously, both these quarterbacks, every time they complete the ball, it's bound to be for more than a first down, as they both average over 13 yards per completion, and they both have a long pass of over 40 yards. So that will be the San Antonio and the Columbus game. Obviously, as E had stated, he does have Virginia Beach and San Antonio going at it and winning it all for San Antonio, obviously. And I have Virginia Beach going to Columbus, or neutral site as it will be. And, of course, Virginia Beach taking it all. So if anyone else has any predictions, don't feel afraid. Go ahead and put them down, and let's see who is the ultimate winner of predictions. Unfortunately, like we said earlier in the episode, he's not going to be able to get that dollar coffee anymore. But I think if he gets his 2 picks here today, I think he could be able to get any amount of coffee he wants, because just a simple dollar taking San Antonio with the upset will be incredible. So that'll be the episode for today. We will see you guys next week for the championship, and we will see who is right, who is wrong. Maybe we're both wrong, and it's San Antonio and St. Louis. Who knows? But we'll see you all next week. I am Cole. This time I will not refer to myself as E like I did in the recording. Had to edit that one out. So I am Cole. That is Read Option. We will see you all next week, and we'll see you at the broadcast games. Be there. And hey, if you're new to this, apply for a prospect. Apply for ownership. Join the broadcast team. We'd love to have you. That's all. See you guys later.
Third opinion on this podcast. Oh, yeah, it's final note for me. A third opinion on this podcast would be much appreciated. So if you want to be on the broadcast team or even just on the podcast team, I don't think we've officially designated the podcast team here at the NAGA Media, but that would be much appreciated. So instead of just leaving your prediction in the comments, we would love to discuss it with you guys as well. That is my little closing remark there.
And as always, E has a great point, and that is an amazing point, because I will also mention this right now. I actually hope to have the commissioner on the Pick podcast for the championship game. So we'll have 3 voices, and hey, if anyone else wants to join, perhaps we can get that in there as well for little subbing. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But like you said, hey, if you want to join for the pick, go ahead. Show up. Just we'll work everything out. But thank you all for watching. We hope to see you during the broadcasts. We'll see you at the championship game. I'm Cole. That's Read Option. We'll see you later.